You ready, Steve?
I am ready.
All right. All right, it is the beginning of 2016. I am joined by Steve Arhancet, co-owner of Team Liquid. I don't want to leave him out, but we are in the Team Liquid. Is this like the studio space or the player? What is this apartment that we're in?
This is the main LCS housing, and then it's also transformed into kind of a video area.
Okay.
We do editing, post-production, kind of work.
You guys have expanded a lot, I think, over the past year as a company, because now I just remember when it was like a much smaller thing, but just sort of thinking back to, it's been just over a year since Curse became part of Team Liquid and became this whole thing. What would you say this past year has been like for you running this whole thing and seeing it grow?
Yep. So in December of 2014, we had about, I think, 10 players under Curse. So it was under my management. And that, when we started with TL, was probably 25. We were 55 players yesterday. We signed 4 new players for Call of Duty today, got those contracts done. So yeah, we're 59 players at this point, plus all of our staff, which puts us somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100. We have 2 gaming facilities, one in the Netherlands, one here in LA. We have 3 units. We have a full production company called One Up Studios that produces Rebirth, commercial content, and we sell those services to developers and TOs.
Yeah. One Up Studios. I'd heard that you guys were kind of doing this. Obviously, people knew about Rebirth, but you have been kind of quiet about it as a company or as part of the company. What is maybe the goal of that, or maybe you can speak to more length at what that does and what it accomplishes.
Yeah. So One Up Studios is just it's separated from TL. It is a production creative studio that produces assets for Team Liquid, so that we can publish kind of behind the scenes content about our teams. It also serves as competitive advantage over other esports teams, so that when we go to sponsors and they want to create assets or content within the space that's authentic and real, they don't have to do that in-house, and they don't have to outsource that to some other kind of creative agency that may not have as much of a kind of an alignment with the gaming space, so they don't get how gamers talk and then all the kind of verbiage that's used in the space. So it's for in-house stuff, and it also serves for clients that want to just create assets in the gaming space: commercials, websites, graphics, video blogs, mini documentaries, long documentaries. Yeah.
It kind of sounds like your goal is to turn Team Liquid with One Up Studios into a one-stop shop, I guess, for companies that are interested in getting into esports and want to make a footprint in the industry.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, One Up Studios is an extension of the capabilities of our organization as an esports team, but it's definitely not a cash cow for the organization. I mean, it's great. It will be there. Hopefully, we'll make a little money or just kind of break even on it. But the main goal still is the contracts that we have with the leagues that we operate in, and the future benefit of those arrangements, so that we have kind of long-term positions to invest more into our players and the environment and coaching and management, so that we can produce the best athletes in the world.
What is notable to me is that it feels like 2016 and kind of at the end of 2015, we've started to see not just people within the industry, but even the esports public start to discuss a lot about the things that are happening behind the scenes on the business front. Obviously there's been discussion around player salary stuff. There's been VCs coming in. We just recently saw a lot of discussion around Activision Blizzard picking up MLG. What do you think are some of the bigger changes that we're going to be seeing in 2016, sort of, outside of the game on the industry and business front?
I think one of the most important things to create kind of a burgeoning esports industry is that you need to have leagues that put on kind of the best shows of competition that are highly watched, so that they can be sponsored and advertising money can be spent on those leagues. When that happens and you have that narrative, you have that storyline, you don't have like a sea of congestion where you don't know who's playing and what tournaments, that creates an opportunity for marketers and advertisers to get into the space and feel comfortable doing a 3 or 5 year contract or a very large 1 year contract to support that league. And then once you have that league formation done, you can take some of that revenue that's associated with that league, and it can be a pass through to the teams and then pass through to the players. Yeah. So that will create, I think, kind of a sustainable ecosystem that will be healthy for our industry.
It sounds like you favor like an LCS or Turner League a lot more than the kind of, oh, there's a CSGO tournament at this DreamHack and a CSGO tournament at this ESL event and a CSGO tournament at this other thing. It sounds like you would like to see everything kind of move towards like an LCS style, Turner style system.
You know, it's interesting because you have so many different tournaments that bring a group of people either from a certain geography or a certain kind of, you know, they all share a college experience or something like that. That's great. You know, you set up an event. I think it's important to keep those communities, but they need to be part of a storyline or a narrative that's easy to follow. You know, when you think about who's the best team in CSGO right now, you have to think, okay, what tournament are you talking about? Are you talking about how they did in Facer? Are you talking about how they did in Turner? Are you talking about how they did on this or this and this? And you don't really know, right? At this major or that major. I think it's healthy for both the financial part of the industry, but also for fans to follow when there is one. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do that. Riot Games doing the LCS is one way, so it doesn't need to be replicated just like that to be successful. Yeah. More importantly, the narrative and storyline, I think, is the important part. Yeah.
I mean, so since I got into esports, started doing all this stuff, gosh, about 5 years ago, I feel like every year people say this is going to be the year of esports, or like this is the year it all really blows up, or when we get all our major sponsors in. This year, again, with sort of the MLG acquisition, right, still chugging along, Turner starting up their CSGO league. Do you feel as though, quote, this is the year, or is this just one more year similar to what we've seen in the past?
You know, what's really exciting about 2016 is that in years prior, there's been astronomical viewership for esports events, right? Trumping most other professional sports that we're aware of. And it's living on a digital platform, which most marketers and advertisers have a difficulty advertising on, right? And it's also to the millennial audience, which most are kind of ignore traditional marketing, right? They can kind of smell when something's fake and they just kind of tune it out. So you have this content and distribution platform that's highly valuable. And now people are starting to understand the value associated with that. And that's happened here at the end of 2015, at the start of 2016. So some of the investment deals that you've seen, like the purchase of like MLG, or some of the new team owners that are now in North American LCS, relevant names like Mark Cuban, I think Shaquille O'Neal was at the esports event, and there's numerous cases of all these things. It's bringing kind of an endorsement to the industry that these numbers are real. There's real ROI for marketers and advertisers to do things in this space. So I think this is going to be a year where you see some of those toe dips happen. Yeah. You're going to see, like we saw with American Express coming out with a program, or United Airlines saying, hey, let's do a test run for X amount and see what kind of engagement that we're going to get with this. So, this will be a year of testing for some of those kind of more blue chip companies. And hopefully our audience will buy things and engage with them so that we have a sustainable industry. Yeah. So I think this will be a year of testing to see that, and I fully believe that will provide better ROI than click ads.
Yeah. Click ads are, I think, going away anyway. But I think it's very interesting. Just over a year ago, you sold Curse Academy. Mm-hmm. That team is now owned by Rick Fox, and it was reported that he purchased it for $1 million or something along those lines, and that falls in line with similar reports that we've heard about for the valuation of other teams in ALCS, EU, LCS, etc. Along with that, we've heard a lot of conversation around how much VC backing these guys are getting to purchase and run these teams. Do you have any thoughts on this? Because I think there's a lot of people that are saying, even back at TwitchCon, I interviewed Raynad, and he was saying he feels as though all the VCs going to come in, create a bubble that's not going to be sustainable, it'll burst, and it'll be bad for the industry. Do you have any thoughts on the VC funding that we're seeing coming into the industry and just kind of the investors that are looking to spend money?
Yeah, I think VCs and private investors, folks or groups of people that have money that are coming into the space. One thing they don't have is they don't have knowledge of the space, and they weren't here from the beginning, right? So obviously they have cash, and that's why they're coming into the space, which is, I think, good. I think it's going to be the future will tell of those owners how much of the spending is prudent, how much of it is being done in a sustainable way for the ecosystem. There's, I think, a difference between spending money kind of without an objective of getting a return versus spending money to try to run a profitable business, right? Those are two different things. We've seen in some of the stories of even League of Legends and in the Chinese markets where some of these kind of billionaires just kind of, let's have some fun and spend some money, right? That's an example of one side to the extreme, and the other side of the extreme would be running your business based on profitability. So I think what's good is that we're creating a better group of owners in North America. I can speak for North America alone, but and that helps for a few reasons. One, I think it gets us closer to some sort of league model that will benefit teams and players in the long term, and I think it will be good for the industry for smart, prudent folks that really want esports to work. But if we get a few that are kind of recklessly spending money, then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah. So with a lot of these VCs, they're kind of approaching it, I believe, at least it appears, from a sort of startup style, right? Where the goal is to sort of create a product over time and maybe not turn a profit within the first couple of years. For teams like yourself and others that have been around before, Cloud9, CLG, etc., you guys have been operating and needing to make a profit for a while because you don't have all this investment money to burn. Does it make you concerned at all that these guys will be able to come in and not have to worry about that? Whereas, it's probably pretty hard to compete with somebody who can spend money and doesn't have to really worry about bringing that return in immediately.
In business and in life, things are not fair, right? Like whether I feel like they have an advantage for having access to more capital than I do doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What matters is that Team Liquid maintains its position as a very strong, professional and kind of large esports organization that creates the best environment for teams and players to perform at the highest level. And so I will continue to do that. And if we need to seek investment or find ways of accessing capital so that we can execute on the strategy plans that we have for Team Liquid, then yeah, of course, I might do that. So I think it goes back to the same answer before, which is as long as everyone is like wisely spending the capital that's being put into this industry so that we can increase the amount of revenue that is actually going to esports as a whole, then we'll have accomplished something really great.
Yeah. So now I'd like to switch to the League of Legends section. So all the people that were watching just curious about Team Liquid but don't care about the league team can now tune out. But obviously there's been some pretty big changes in the roster and in the team at the start of this year going into LCS. I feel like Team Liquid in the past has often been willing to sort of take the first step in and kind of do something a little crazy. The crazy thing you guys seem to be doing this time is having a 10-man roster. What does that actually mean? Because I think a lot of people are going to be like, okay, well, they're going to have a 10-man roster, but clearly they're just going to have 5 people that are playing every week. Can we really expect to see a change in the roster between days and between games?
So the simple answer is absolutely. We will see changes going into the next split. So here's my philosophy on a 10-man roster. For the last 2 years plus, I've been closely involved in managing the League of Legends team. And during that time, I've seen players not push themselves as hard as they need to not kind of go to their full potential. And I think part of that is this complacency that is around when you kind of know, hey, I'm the guy. I can kind of sit around and check the box and go through the motions. What's really cool about the impact that it's already had on our teams and players is that there's this collaborative learning process, but two, there's this motivation to try hard every single day. And the difference that we're getting from communication levels, engagement, post-game discussion, working with the coaches and analysts has done almost like a complete 180 from where it was before. And I think a lot of that has to do with having a 10-man squad, so that there is this kind of healthy pressure that I want to be the best. And what these guys don't may or may not understand is that it's also good for them, right? Because it's going to make them a better player. When you're right next to somebody else that is playing in the same position, you're going to be growing at a faster pace than maybe somebody that is relying on their self-development with just a coach. And so the result of that will be 10 players that are probably they're further along from like a macro level understanding or even a micro level for their individual gameplay than somebody that's just a player working with a coach. So that's my philosophy. I think it's good for competition, and I also think it's healthy for, like, we have a wrist injury, or a player feels like sitting out 1 week because they kind of want to break, right, mentally. We have the flexibility to do those sorts of things. So I want to create a culture where there's no financial negative implications associated with it. You really are just focused on playing your best and becoming better than you are today. I think this does that. So it will be about how we execute on it.
Yeah. Now, I think my last question is just going to be about the coaching situation. Mm-hmm. Loco joined the team as a content creator, and it was very funny because I think the headline on Reddit was something like, Loco joins Team Liquid, and all the comments were like, oh, I thought he was going to be a coach. He's just a content creator. Everybody, we're good, no worries. And then just a couple months later, it's like, Loco moves up to coaching.
Right.
And I also watched the episode of Preseason that just came out recently, and that even was a little confusing to me because at one point in time, it's like, okay, we have this new coach. He's coming in. You kind of hear him talking to some of the players, and then, it's like fast forward, something else happens, and it's like, and now we've decided to go with Loco.
Yeah.
I mean, for the TL fans that are really interested in the behind the scenes stuff, maybe you can shed some light on how this all happened and why you settled on Loco.
So the answer is that we went through kind of a very rigorous interview process with a number of applicants. We narrowed it down to one gentleman. He came in, he started working. It was clear that it wasn't working out, and so we decided to look for alternatives. And speaking with Loco, I said, hey, while we search for another head coach, do you mind just stepping in and helping out? Like, this is your expertise, you know it. And once he had the first 3 days with the team, every member of the team was like, you have to keep Loco. This guy is amazing. He's so good. We're learning more than we've learned in the last month, in the last day. And so then I just spoke with Loco, and we had kind of an in-depth conversation to figure out if this is something that he would be fully committed to. And he agreed to do it. And since then, he's been kind of all in and working really hard on the development of all 10 players. And so that's kind of how it happened. We weren't looking in that direction initially, and it kind of just happened because some of the other alternatives didn't work out.
Yeah. And
we had kind of a time crunch to figure out a solution.
Yeah. Are you confident he'll be around for summer?
Loco will absolutely be with Team Liquid as an organization. Will he be as head coach? I think time will tell. I think it'll be two quick to have the players kind of ready for a new coach at that point. So I think he will be, but I don't want to make any kind of you know finite kind of things. We're going to play it by ear and see how things go.
The screensaver behind us is turned on, which I think means that it's time for us to end this, and we're out of time. Is there anything that you would like to say? Obviously, whenever I interview your players, I always ask them if there's anything they want to say. But at the start of 2016, anything you want to say to any of the Team Liquid fans out there?
Our fans, we wouldn't be here without you guys. It's been kind of a rough ride, fourth place, but we secured a third place last season. Even though the LCS is really competitive this season, we're making major upgrades, and I think you're going to see a good show out of the team. So thanks for supporting us.
Well, thank you so much for the interview. Always good to sit down and talk to you. It's very, very fun to talk to you about League, but also about the business side of things, because you've been around for a while, so you've seen it change. So
absolutely. Well, thanks for spending time with me too.
Looking forward to seeing you at the studio this year.
Okay.
For everyone else, you can check out the rest of our coverage of all things LCS at gamespot.com/LOL.